I want to ask you something. When was the last time that you have actually forgiven someone? For me, it was very long ago. Over 10 years. And to be frank, it was only 1 or 3 times that I've ever forgiven somebody. Sounds kind of heavy, isn't it? But the reason why is because I do think it depends on how we define forgiveness. I do think many people are either confusing or just being ignorant towards the difference between letting go and actual forgiveness. Letting go means that you don't take responsibility anymore for the shitty action of somebody else that has impacted your life in a negative way, profoundly. Like, we're not talking about trivial things that are easy to forgive or to let go. Like, not about, I don't know, I took one too many peppermints from the hotel room, something like that. Like, more impactful. Like, impacting your relationships, I don't know, your workplace, your reputation, your family, your friendships, what have you. More of the serious nature, right? And there are also 2 types. So there is more the complex type, like many betrayals, many boundary violations over a long-standing period of time. And the more severe, sudden, overwhelming type. Yeah, and it's destabilizing. It can affect your self-esteem, your worldview, your relationships, like the way you approach them. And we tend to want to take too much responsibility for them, for the events that are transpiring. And I do think it's an artifact from childhood, oftentimes. Like, in a way, it's our way to retain a sense of control over our life. Like, in childhood, it's also usually the case. Like, for example, when the parents are fighting, then if you as a child are sweet and trying to appease the situation, then your parents will stop fighting. You're giving yourself the blame and the responsibility to fix the relationship because you're dependent on them and you have no other choice. Everything else would be too destabilizing for your mind. And it starts to integrate into your entire personality and your worldview and your template for future relationships. So yeah, it's a pretty entrenched mechanism, but it's hurtful. And it can leave us feeling like we're to blame for things that we shouldn't take responsibility for. We're starting to blame ourselves for being too stupid to get into the situation in the first place, to not having fight back hard enough for many things. And some people are just predatory. Let's be real. People know that you have certain vulnerabilities, and exploit them to the maximum until there is nothing left to gain. It's typically your narcissistic, psychopathic types of people, right? And God help you if it's a psychopath, like, seriously. So yeah, and it's an important first step to stop taking too much responsibility for the situation. It's a first healthy step to move on with your life. But it's different from forgiving. Forgiving is letting go, plus, and here's the ringer, you no longer feel resentment towards the person that has hurt you. And that's a major thing. Especially when we talk about, like, the sudden variant, the very destabilizing, traumatic, impactful variant. Your murder case, your sexual assault case, something very severe. We deem them as unforgivable, right? And it comes down to this resentment part, because how are you supposed to forgive? How are you supposed to no longer feel resentment towards somebody that has violated you in such a profound way? It seems unthinkable. And usually on a societal level, that is regarded accepted. But the complex variant, where you're enduring emotional abuse for years and years and years, it can be a family system, toxic family system, family member. It can be a relationship with a narcissist, psychopath, what have you. It can be a friendship that you feel very uncomfortable with, that you are feeling like you are stepping on eggshells and trying to avoid lots of situations. You have to change your own behavior to accommodate somebody else. They make you feel devalued. Over a long-standing period, it starts to deteriorate your self-esteem, your self-worth. You stop enjoying things that you used to like because you were criticized so much. And it can be integrated into your overall life and personality and self-perception. Once you realize that you are dealing with somebody like that, and you are so afraid to cut them out of your life because you know that the consequences will be extremely severe. It will hurt your relationships because everybody else around you has been manipulated to have a certain image of them. And people start to gaslight you by tribe for being too negative, for being hypersensitive, for not understanding what has transpired, for maybe just overreacting or not communicating clear enough. It's extremely damaging and confusing. And people tend to hold back on their resentment because they are so afraid of people around them gaslighting them by tribe to make them feel like they are crazy, even though the resentment is very valid. And in fact, it's a protective mechanism. And I want you to remember that if you ever feel like you are not able or ready to forgive someone, it's protecting you from not being exploited again. If you disregard your resentment and your negative feelings towards somebody, that is not good for you. In a way, it's a form of self-disrespect to forgive them, because it means that all the abuse that you have been enduring was in vain, didn't have any impact, didn't have any meaning, and therefore it doesn't matter that you are being abused. In a backhanded way, it means that you are sticking up for yourself to not being treated anymore like that. It's important, and sometimes we do have to hold on to our resentment for our greater good. I know it's in public, it's an ugly emotion, but even if you feel that nobody will ever will understand the concrete situation, it's important to know in your heart that you are the only person that knows what you truly feel, that knows what boundary is a no-fly zone that nobody can cross without severe consequences. A boundary that is so destabilizing for you in case of being crossed that there is no return from that. Hey, it's the next day. Sorry for the disruption in flow, but I was watching back the video from yesterday and I wanted to include a few vital points that I was missing out on. First of all, letting go and forgiveness, both of them, are parts of healing and self-actualization. But they're still not on the same level. Forgiveness, in my perception, is a higher tier actualization, and letting go is a little bit lower. But letting go is vital, and forgiving is not. Usually when we let go of things, it's towards people, harmful people in our life that we have to face on a regular basis. We have to manage them. Sometimes it can be a co-parent, it can be a co-worker in the same department or just close by. And we have to not let them affect us so much anymore by, like I said yesterday, stop taking responsibility for their shitty actions. By realizing that it's not about us, it's about them. And utilizing tools to minimize interaction with them, to, like I said, not let them affect us anymore. Forgiveness is a gift. I want you to really think about that. You choose to not feel resentment anymore when the other person has earned it for themselves. When you see viable change in their behavior over a long-standing pattern that is coming from a place of remorse, reconstitution, are they willing to accept their mistake? Are they explicitly able to recognize the mistake and tell you, I'm sorry for this, that, and the other? Those are a few hallmarks that you should look out for when you are considering to forgive somebody. It's a process. It's a process of healing. Yeah. So it's not all about bitterness. It's not all about you're just choosing to hold on to negative emotion to impact your life in a negative way. It's actually the other way around. You're managing the amount of negative emotions that you are introducing to your life by choosing who you want to forgive or not, by choosing what you want to let go of and not, and what not. Because when you know that somebody is actually just toxic to you, then you know that the likelihood of them actually viably changing is pretty slim. And to be perfectly honest, in my personal experience, next to none. You have to know in your heart what's best for you. You're your own best self-advocate. And you should know that the people around you, if they're actually respectful, should recognize that you have to hold that boundary in a firm place. When you don't see yourself facing your abuser or whatever it is, the person that you don't want to have in your life anymore, it should be respected. Everything else would be gaslighting. And that's emotional abuse. You have to know that. So yeah, don't feel bad if you feel resentment. It's a protective emotion. And only you decide when you are ready to move on. You cannot accelerate your healing. Nobody should put you on a schedule. I'm sorry if this video brought you down, but I did think that it's a very important distinction. I know I'm in a pretty somber mood today, but I felt like it's an important message to put out there. So yeah, I hope you have a wonderful evening. I'm gonna go to sleep now. And see you soon. Take care.